Suddenly, I caught sight of the hood of a Martian machine, standing somewhere in Central Park, gleaming in the late afternoon sun. An insane idea. I rushed recklessly across Columbus Circle and into the park. I climbed a small hill above the pond at 60th Street, and from there I could see, standing in a silent row along the mall, 19 of those great metal titans, their cowls empty, their steel arms hanging listlessly by their sides. I looked in vain for the monsters that inhabit those machines. Suddenly, my eyes were attracted to the immense flock of black birds that hovered directly below me. They circled to the ground. And there before my eyes, stark and silent, lay the Martians with the hungry birds pecking and tearing brown shreds of flesh from their dead bodies. Later, when their bodies were examined in laboratories, it was found that they were killed by the putrefactive and disease bacteria against which their systems were unprepared. Slain, after all, man's defenses had failed by the humblest thing that God, His wisdom, has put upon this earth.
The common cold. That was Orson Welles in that famous 1938 radio program he gave. I'm John Rose. That radio program was made into several movies, one in 1953, and then, of course, with Tom Cruise later on. Not sure what year that came out. But isn't it interesting, they both snuck in that one little punchline. The germs is what killed the Martians. You have to understand, folks, how we're being tricked every time we turn around. New references are put in this page, in these books in our brain, more pages in these books of baloney, making us think in the contagion myth or the myth of scarcity. I go over this all the time in my other videos. Every time you turn around, there's another new reference that makes us believe certain things are the way they are. I just did a video a couple of days ago on the giant germ, a little school book indoctrinating little children into believing that there are these germs that are causing our problems. Just like in this movie. Just like in many movies. You watch a lot of movies and we're being reinforced all the time into believing things that keep us where we are. And of course, in this case, the Martians just didn't have a defense against our germs. In God's wisdom, He knew to put germs and bacteria there. So what, if aliens come, they'll kill the aliens? Like all aliens are going to come after us? Not really sure where that's supposed to go. And this ties right into the same type of lies we've been told about the Native Americans and how supposedly the white man came over and gave them the germs for smallpox. And that's what decimated so many of the Native Americans. No, it wasn't. I say this over and over and over. Most of our illnesses are coming from waste matter, either outside of us or inside of us. Disease of poverty, disease of affluence. What we did to these poor Native Americans, put them into camps where they're freezing, and gave them fecal-soaked blankets. This is where disease comes from. This is where filth comes from. It's why it still exists in third world countries, and it's why we suffered for so long after the Industrial Revolution. That's why the plague broke out, and when the Roman Empire was conquered in the West and the East about 1,000 years apart. The conquerors came in, destroyed the aqueducts, the sewage systems, and what happened? The plague broke out. What happened in the Industrial Revolution? We grew, we got into cities, we weren't able to control our waste matter. The sanitation problems, we figured that out. I'll put a link down below to these myth-dispelling graphs that clearly show in a 100-year period of time that all these diseases that were supposedly eradicated with vaccines went away because they were plumbing problems. They were diseases of filth. Just like that great speech in 1862 by Russell Trawl. Dr. Trawl went to the Smithsonian Institute, was pleading to the authorities. Over 5,000 people attended this, and he was begging them, saying, look, more soldiers are dying in the war because they're living in filth. They get measles, we give them drugs, they get hemoptysis, we give them drugs, they get typhoid, they die. It's a sequence. And there are people in control of what they teach doctors to make sure that this sequence continues, that we use poisons in the name of health. It doesn't work. Let's blame the germ and give a drug for it. No, the germ's not a problem. It's the consequence. Sure, you can find a germ that's going to be along that fecal matter, but the problem with these illnesses, it's the fecal matter. It's the waste matter. It's not the bacteria. As Louis Pasteur admitted on his deathbed, the microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. If we're full of filth, we're going to have the bacteria come in and get us. But this movie and radio program illustrates two main things, especially the radio program. It shows you how easy it is to trick people into believing things because they rely on the source, and this is what gets us in trouble so much. So many people believe in what they hear on TV and in the news. They put trust in their doctors, they put trust in the mainstream media, and they have no idea how they're being tricked and fooled into things that don't work. What I'm going to do in this video, I'm not going to go into much more depth. I'm going to put a lot of links to different videos that all explain this in more depth about how there are 4 long-term stages of disease. There are 2 short-term self-limited diseases, and that's where these come into play. Healing Secrets Revealed, it goes into that in much detail. What is the healthiest diet for humans goes into much detail. One of the best things we can do for all these people who are so easily tricked and fooled and put trust in the mainstream media and trust in our doctors and our educational systems is watch the Norman Dodd interview, where he clearly shows how the powers that be control what historians were taught so they could control what we were taught on history, so history would repeat itself. Same thing applies to medicine and nutrition. The same thing applies to theology and philosophy and logic. Everything. Our educational systems are controlled to make sure we don't wake up to where we are. So the best thing anyone can do if you're new to this, watch the Norman Dodd interview. I'll put a link down below. Chief investigator for the Reese Committee. And he found, yes, they started controlling what historians were taught. They're controlling them, they're controlling what nutritionists are taught, they're controlling what doctors are taught, and then we're being bombarded with educational books and movies. You watch movies that reinforce certain beliefs so we don't understand the whole concept of how we're being controlled by money. Satan's Secret Weapon is another great video you guys need to watch. When you guys can finally watch all that and put it all together, I guarantee you're in for a treat.